And the most important thing that I want you to think about is, and this is what I tell all the founders that I connect with within the community, is you don't have to apologize for charging what you want and what your work is worth. Let me say that again. You do not have to apologize for charging what you think you're worth for your work, right? There's no need for you to apologize. All right. There's no need for you to apologize. If you want to charge $10,000 or more, which we've had some students do in the past after our programs, you're able to do so. You know, part of building the UndocuStartup mindset is stepping outside of your comfort zone, thinking about your business without limits. And it's part also thinking about, what would I do if I was not undocumented? Right? And then you have to shock the limiting beliefs that you put on ourselves, that we put on ourselves, that we should just get paid under the table, that we should just do this, that we should just keep our mouth shut. No, let's ask for what we want. The UndocuStartup mindset is ask for what you want, assume that there's no limits, get paid, make money, but don't just make money to survive, make money to thrive. That's always been the goal. That's what UndocuStartup is. That's what we stand for. Right? We're not just trying to build businesses that are going to help us become self-employed. It's about how can we get rich? How can we overcome all these obstacles and build economic pathways, economic infrastructure, so that in the future, we don't have to struggle like the past generation of undocumented people that came and all they do was work. Not that there's not anything wrong with that, but I think we're at a point, and I've said this so many times, that I think a lot of undocumented students that are in college, they have the English, they have the network, they have the work ethic of their parents. Now, imagine if they just have a little bit of help here and there. Imagine how much value we can create as a community, right? But it starts here. It starts going against all the beliefs. It starts thinking of yourself highly, and it starts asking for what you want when you're doing your pricing, when you're doing your service, when you're selling your product.
Welcome to UndocuStartup by Juan Maya Hernandez.
All right, so welcome to today's episode of UndocuStartup Weekly, where I share the biggest lessons that I've been learning building the #1 entrepreneurship program for undocumented students. If you're an Undocu student liaison and you're struggling to help your Undocu students get into an entrepreneurship career, please visit www.UndocuStartup.com. Again, that is www.UndocuStartup.com. I want to just remind you all that if you're looking at this video on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or podcast of your choice, please give it a rating, give it a star, okay? It is with your help that I'll be able to continue this work, helping as many undocumented students nationwide learn how they can start a legal company, build a career path after they graduate, and I won't be able to get there without your help. So please go ahead and share this episode with somebody that you know needs this. Now, over the years, I've had experience selling things for thousands of dollars, and I've had experience selling things for less than thousands of dollars, for hundreds of dollars, right? And one of the biggest things that I always receive when people direct message me or when people email me is they're always asking me, how do you price? How can you make this sustainable? So I wanted to use today's episode to share some of the lessons and strategies I've used to sell my current programs that I have. But also before I did this, I did photography. I did different side hustles. So I wanted to put this episode together. So let's jump right into it. All right. Lesson #1. Sometimes selling things that are over $1,000 is easier than selling things for less than $1,000, right? And I'll give you 2 clients that I've dealt with within my time. Last year, I had a client that was paying me less than $1,000, and it was a great client. I have nothing against them, but there were a few things that I noticed, right? One of the things that this client that was paying me less than $1,000 was asking of me was asking for constant check-ins. They were asking to micromanage me. They were asking to change some of my content, that I could use this word or I can't use that word, right? And that's not something that I saw with my clients that pay me $1,000 or more. They usually just tell me, I've sent the check already. Let's get you paid, and then we're good to go. Or let me send you the paperwork that you need to file, and just tell me what you need from me, right? Because they assume that I'm the expert. They assume that I am doing all these other things. And that's something that I did not get with my less than $1,000 clients. And you get to decide as the founder, at what level do you want to be known as, right? What level do you want to be known as? And sometimes what I've also seen, and I speak about personal experience too, as I was like trying to find a vendor to help me with something that I'm dealing with right now, is that cheaper clients come in a place of fear of like they may not have enough money or stuff like that, because that's how I am as a purchaser, right? But then there's people that will happily pay the amount of money that you're asking for. You just have to find them, right? You just have to find them. And that also brings me to lesson number 2. Don't be afraid of asking for what you want. And this comes around pricing, right? Do not be afraid to ask for what you want. One of the things that happened to me in my first year when I was doing this boot camp, and I was still barely starting UndocuStartup, was I had a client. I was pitching this to multiple institutions, and one client tells me I was pitching them like a multi-week program, and one of the clients was telling me, "Can you do this in 5 hours? And can you do this on a Saturday?" Right? And I remember thinking to myself, "How am I going to make that happen? Can I make that happen?" So I look at everything. I look at the expenses. I look at how much time I'm going to practice, and I come back with a number, right? I come back with a number, and I tell her, okay, this is going to be this amount of money, and whatnot. Now, the client ended up telling me, well, there's actually nobody else that I can compare you to. And I was also very nervous to ask for that pricing, because I was like, oh, I don't know. What if they say yes? What if they say no? And part of me was, I got lucky. But that person ended up saying yes to me after my fear, right? Like, I was scared to ask for that pricing. And when she said it, I was like, I think it's going to be X amount of money. I wasn't confident enough. But after that, she ended up saying yes to me. And then after that, more people, more clients that were similar in her budget ended up coming, right? And they ended up saying yes to me again. And I was like, okay, this is the price range where the market is going to tell you how much something is worth. And especially if you're operating in something where you're creating, there's not a lot of competition and they can't really compare you to something else, then you want to take advantage of that. And you want to, look at how much are people willing to pay, right? And that comes with not being afraid of asking for what you want. It is uncomfortable, but once you get one person to tell you yes, you're gonna gain that confidence. You're gonna continue. You're gonna build momentum, and it's gonna become second nature to you as you're continuing to grow your business. So on pricing, ask for what you want. You might go a few months. People might tell you a lot of no's until you get that first yes. But I promise you that once you get that first yes, you're gonna receive a lot more confidence. Now, lesson number 3 is that presentation changes everything. Presentation changes everything. What do I mean by presentation? Presentation, I mean your proposal, the way that your proposal looks, the language that you use, the way that you look also makes a difference, right? If you show up in jeans, people are not going to take you seriously, right? Every single time I do a program, every single time I have a meeting with a potential client, I put on a suit, and if it's through Zoom, I put on a shirt, and I put this, I don't know what this is called, but I put this on, right? Because I understand one thing, that presentation does matter. I know some people are going to say like, no, people should like me for who I am or whatever. That's not how it works, right? There is literally studies out there that talk about that the more beautiful some person is, the more money they will make. So I didn't understand this back then, but now I understand it. Even at UCLA, I once had a professor that was helping me with this ideation of what I was trying to build. And one of the things that I had a bad habit on back in my college UCLA days was like, I would hop into a meeting, I'll talk about my business seriously, and then I would start to laugh. And I remember that professor that I spoke to, he actually told me, like, you have something great here, but if you go into every meeting and you start laughing, no one's going to take you seriously. And I started taking his advice very, very seriously, and it has changed my whole business trajectory. Now, every time I go into a meeting, if it's a serious meeting, there's a time and place, right? There's a time and place to be funny. There's a time and place to be professional, right? And you want to look at how professional are you. Now, what does this also mean? It also means that your website should be up to par, right? The way that you present yourself. If I used to say like, oh, we run this entrepreneurship thing for immigrant students, that's not good enough. Now that I say I run the leading entrepreneurship program for undocumented students, when I talk to these new people, they take me a little bit more seriously because of the way that I am speaking about it. Think about, how can I improve my website? How can I improve how I look? How can I improve? Are you making sure that you're well groomed if you're a man, right? Are you getting a good haircut, right? That's not something. I was looking at my past TikTok videos, and that was not something that I was looking at back then. Presentation matters. The way you look matters. The way your website matters. The colors, the wording, everything does matter, right? So if you want to be taken seriously when it comes to pricing with everything, make sure everything is up to par. Make sure the branding is good and top notch. And the other thing you have to understand, like, it also depends on your goals and how far you want to grow, right? Like, if you're just trying to build a simple small brand, you might not even care about the branding. But if you're trying to build a national brand, they really care about the branding. They invest a lot of money into marketing, a lot of money into their logos, a lot of money into their production, and that's something that I've been looking at, that I've learned over the years. Lesson number 4 is to not lower your price too fast. Okay, do not lower your price so fast. This was not something that I used to do, right? But really recently, this past week or so, I had this meeting with a potential partner, a potential institution that wanted to partner with me. They said, "Hey, I want to do this every single year. I want to do this every single year. I want to do a multi-year contract, etc." Then we start talking about the budget. We start thinking about, okay, how much is the budget gonna be, etc. They told me, "Oh, I can only do this much. Can you do it for that money?" And I broke. I ended up saying, like, and this is so unordinary, like, it's not ordinary of me, but I ended up saying, why don't I do it for free? Now, if I was starting this in 2021, 2022, that's okay. But now I'm in 2026. Now I am trying to scale this. Now I'm trying to see how far we can grow because we have all these other goals. And luckily, the staff member that I had connected with in this conversation, she ended up telling me, well, whoa, Juan, before you end up doing that for free, let's see if I can talk to multiple partners. Let's see if I can actually help, if I can actually find more funding, etc. And that just reminded me that I shouldn't be, just because I'm trying to land a partnership, I shouldn't be too quick to say I'm going to do this for free. You don't want to lower your price too fast because then it makes people think that everything that you're doing is negotiable. And when you get to that point, then things start becoming negotiable, and you don't want that. Up to this point, I have not given a discount, and I'll have another lesson in a few moments. But that was just a reminder that you don't want to lower your price too fast. There's other ways that you can get the same amount of money, but you have to exhaust all of your resources. Maybe you can find a sponsor, maybe you can split it with other people. So definitely think about, when you're talking to clients, figure out ways on how you can still win. It could be a win-win scenario with all of them, but don't be too quick to offer a discount, especially not for free. Now, that's number 5 is to upsell existing clients. If somebody already bought once, think bigger. Can they buy twice? Can they buy 3 times? Can they buy 4 times? Can you have a premium offering? Can you have a bronze offering? Can you have an intro offer? Right? Think about lifetime value. How much are these customers paying you over the course of a year, right? How much are they paying you? And then can you come up with a offer that kind of goes near to this? So I'll give you a story on how I implemented this. In 1 year, I did a workshop and then I did a program, and I looked at the total amount of money people were, well, at least that institution paid me. And I was like, okay, this is the total amount of money. Can I come up with an offer that is in that amount of range, in that same range, the budget range? And can I pitch this to them? And the next time I had a conversation with them, I did that. So instead of me getting it from these 2 separate services, I made a new offer, including what I did for them, but now we landed a bigger contract. So always start thinking about. So the lesson here is start thinking about, how can I sell this twice? How can I sell this 3 times? How can I do a premium? How can I do a gold, etc. And you can realistically come up with multiple packages. If you're selling a service, you can realistically think about different products and whatnot. So definitely look at, how can I upsell the current clients by solving their problems? And also look at how much did they actually spend on you every single year. So like that you can come up with something, because everything is data. Once you have the data, then you can start thinking about, okay, this is what I'm going to pitch to them. And then if it works out, and you might land something bigger. So that's lesson number 5. Now, lesson number 6, and I told y'all that I don't normally discount, but there is one instance that I have discounted. Right. Lesson number 6 is strategic discounts can open up new markets. Right. So I'm in this process of just trying to do as many boot camps as possible, find as many partnerships as possible in different states, not just in California. Right. And I'm open to discounting in different markets. I'm open to discounting different cities. I'm open to finding ways on how I can expand the word. But the only reason and the only way I will discount is if it's a win-win for me. If it's a new market, what I realize is, like, one city might buy at a different place, one university might need this, other institution might need this. So I'm willing to negotiate. I'm willing to look at different things, but it has to be a new thing for me. Like, it has to open new doors for me so I can continue to grow in this company. It has to help me get into new markets so like that it can continue increasing. So Sometimes a discount is great because it can help you open new markets. Now, lesson number 7 is to add bonuses to increase perceived value, right? So what's perceived value, right? The worth of what you're doing, the worth of the service, the worth of what people are doing is dependent on how much the market is willing to pay for it, right? So you want to put together an offer that looks like a no-brainer for any client that you have. The way that I've done this is I look at my current program and I look at my current proposal and I ask myself, how can I increase the value of this offer? What else can I include, right? And one of the things that I tell myself is if they were paying me 10 times the amount of money that I was getting paid for this, what else would I add? And then I start listing different bonuses that I can add, right? Like bonuses if I do this, if I do that. Right. And you could realistically come up with a lot of bonuses, digital PDFs. You can come up with maybe they get something off. You can come up with so many things. You kind of just have to sit through it. But over the years, all of my proposals have included different bonuses that now I'm able to be like, okay, I can include this as part of my contract to give to the students. And that has dramatically helped me when it comes to building my pricing. So for example, if I was doing photography, my photography headshot business in 2026, what would I be doing differently when I could use AI? I can change different backgrounds. I can use Photoshop skin retouch. I can do all these other things. And those could be increasing the perceived value of my offer that I didn't know back then. Right. So you just got to make what you're doing more valuable. What are the different ways that are going to make it more valuable moving forward? Right. Lesson number 8 is to not change your price. Just change your customer. I've mentioned this so many times, right? I had a conversation with a founder that lived in San Francisco. She was charging $35 an hour, which is interesting because as a contractor, as an entrepreneur, I've never charged per hour. I always charge for the end product, the end result, because that's how much confidence I have. But that confidence came over the years, right? Like I've been trying to do this since 2021. But this founder was telling me like, oh, like I'm charging 35. I'm not sure if I'm able to get these contracts, right? But they're coming when you're charging per hour, you're coming into the deal or the negotiation thinking as an employee. You're thinking about, oh, I'm going to do X amount of hours. Instead, focus on the end product, right? If you're doing a product or a service, focus on the end product and charge for the end product. And also just change the customer. And I literally told this founder, I said, if you change your price to, let's say, $90 an hour, and you get one yes, you're going to be doing 3 times the amount of revenue with the same amount of work with less clients, three clients less, right? So the biggest thing that I've learned is when you change your price or you change your customer, you're attracting people that for them is going to be a no-brainer, right? Like when have you ever gone to the store and let's say you have like $10, you buy bubblegum for $2, right? You look at it, you're like, that's nothing. So you want to find clients that feel like that around your service or your product, that they have the budget, they have the funding, and it's much easier to sell to them than to try to convince somebody that may not have those funds to pay you what you're worth. Just find people that make more money. Find clients that have more money, more funding, right? Lesson number 9 is when you're thinking about pricing too, you want to think about reverse engineering your revenue goal. So let's say your goal is to make $100,000 and you're charging $1,000, right? Well, you might need 100 clients, right? Whereas if your goal is $100,000 and you're charging $10,000, you might only need 10 clients. And where are you going to find those 10 clients? That's the $1 million question, right? But eventually have a goal in mind of how much money you want to make in a year and then work backwards to think about your pricing. That's been something that has that has helped me. Because once you have your pricing, how much you're going to charge, and once you have your goal, you're going to be able to look at how many clients do you need, right? At different levels. And I think everything's about data. Everything's about kind of going into the market, getting some feedback, and you go from there. And this is going to give you direction on how to move without changing so many things. And I think that was one of the mistakes that I've done in the past, or like I changed the pricing. No, let's just keep the pricing the same and then see if we can find 10, 20, 30 clients that fit within this pricing range. Now, lesson number 10, when you're thinking about pricing again, is think about your taxes and your profit margins, right? So you're going to have to pay around 20 to 25% of your taxes if you're self-employed. That's just based on my experience, right? So you want to include that into your contract. Maybe you want to set some money aside, maybe include it. Obviously, your clients are not going to care whether you pay taxes or not, right? Even though they might send you some forms. But that's for you to understand. Like on the back end, think about your expenses, think about how much you're going to pay for taxes, and also think about how much profit you're winning, right? So profit is the amount of money that is left over after expenses. So one of the things that I always try to get, what I always try to aim for, is a profit of 50%. So like I keep at least 50% of what I make, of what I charge for every single service, and that's gonna allow you to grow and scale and continue to invest back into the company. But you have to think about taxes, and you have to think about your profit margins when you are building your business and you're charging different things. Now, lesson number 11, which is something that I've been doing last year to this year, is that you can raise your prices over time. The biggest thing that you can't do when you're an employee, and I worked as an employee for 5 years, and I was going to get promoted as a marketing manager, and they told me that they were going to increase my pay for $2-3, right? And you can do that as an employee, but as an entrepreneur, you can actually increase your own price by 100% or 1,000%, right? And that's the beauty about being an entrepreneur. And you want to be able to increase your price as you are growing, as you're getting more clients, as you're getting more testimonials, as you're getting more success stories, that you're validating what your service does and how it helps other people. It should be a no-brainer on you increasing your price. If you're adding a new technology, if you're bringing on other people, you're gonna need money. I've always said this many times, that you're gonna need money to grow your company. You're gonna need money to do this, and the only way you could do that is by increasing your prices. And these prices, you can increase them every year. You can look at inflation. You can look at the chips. You can look at the gas. Everything increases. So if you are struggling, why not increase your prices once you've done it over the course of 12 months? The pricing that I envision right now, just selling in California, is going to be one pricing. When I start expanding to other states, when I start doing this nationally, or when I do a something else, it's going to increase, because it's going to be worth it, and I'm going to increase my value. Remember, the company is an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing baby that you're going to have to continue to feed. You're going to have to continue to invest into more time. But over time, all of that time is going to give you leverage to start charging more, and never be afraid of charging more. Just send a notice, right? Most of your clients might want to renew. Other clients might not, but that's okay. If you increase money, you'll make more revenue, right? If you just do the math. But just make sure that over time you're increasing testimonies, you're increasing more people, you're expanding to new places, and your pricing should sort of reflect that, right? So again, the biggest thing here that you want to think about when you're pricing your service, as I've had to learn, is you have to learn your value, right? You have to understand who your customer is. If one customer isn't able to pay you what you want, look for a different customer that is able to pay you, that is not a lot of money for them. Right? You also want to think about how are you positioning yourself? How are you pitching your business? Right? If you pitch, we sell ice cream, 5 days a week. Whereas if you pitch, we have the best ice cream in Los Angeles, that's going to sound different to a different customer, right? But it depends on who you're trying to target. It depends on how you want to position yourself, right? And the most important thing that I want you to think about is, and this is what I tell all the founders that I connect with within the community, is you don't have to apologize for charging what you want and what your work is worth. Let me say that again. You do not have to apologize for charging what you think you're worth for your work, right? There's no need for you to apologize. All right. There's no need for you to apologize. If you want to charge $10,000 or more, which we've had some students do in the past after our programs, you're able to do so. Part of building the UndocuStartup mindset is stepping outside of your comfort zone, thinking about your business without limits. And it's part also thinking about, what would I do if I was not undocumented? Right? And then you have to shock the limiting beliefs that you put on ourselves, that we should just get paid under the table, that we should just do this, that we should just keep our mouth shut. No, let's ask for what we want. The UndocuStartup mindset is ask for what you want, assume that there's no limits, get paid, make money, but don't just make money to survive, make money to thrive. That's always been the goal. That's what UndocuStartup is. That's what we stand for, right? We're not just trying to build businesses that are going to help us become self-employed. It's about how can we get rich? How can we overcome all these obstacles and build economic pathways, economic infrastructure, so that in the future we don't have to struggle like the past generation of undocumented people that came and all they do was work. Not that there's not anything wrong with that, but I think we're at a point, and I've said this so many times, that I think a lot of undocumented students that are in college, they have the English, they have the network, they have the work ethic of their parents. Now imagine if they just have a little bit of help here and there. Imagine how much value we can create as a community, right? But it starts here. It starts going against other beliefs. It starts thinking of yourself highly, and it starts asking for what you want when you're doing your pricing, when you're doing your service, when you're selling your product, because that's the next generation, right? So I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Remember, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give it a star if you find this helpful. And remember, be motivated and stay motivated, baby. And remember that UndocuStartup means undocumented entrepreneurship has no limits. All right. Thank you all so much. And I shall see you all with an announcement soon. Very soon. All right. Take care.